Listened with great interest to Minister Lavrov, so well explained. What I see today is the world is in a terrible state of flux. The countries around the world do not trust their governments in almost every case, and they have a lot of good reason for not trusting their governments. And last year, I had the opportunity in 2024 of traveling through the United States. And I can tell you that at that time, under the Biden administration, the country was in a state of, the people were in a state of shock, not knowing what lies ahead for them as this administration under this man, this, in my opinion, not a very good man, was doing to the country. And I have a lot of my family there, and they were asking, where are we going to go? We can't go anywhere else now. We came to America because this was going to be the place we could get away from all the terrible things that are happening around the world. And now it's coming to the United States. And by God's grace, in my opinion, Donald Trump was elected to be president at the end of last year with the help of my family. And everything changed. Everything changed. Everybody started smiling. I went to America, everybody was relieved. Everybody was breathing properly. I spent April this year in America. I like to tell people that, I like to think I should say to people that 80% of the population that I met from California to Texas last month, in April, was behind Trump, is behind Trump, 80%. That's not true. 100% behind Trump. 100% behind Trump. Trump talks about sovereignty for the United States. I believe you only come right when your country's sovereignty is established. I like the idea of multipolarity and all that sort of stuff, but first your own country, and then relations with each other. That works. Coming to Russia for the first time myself, I need to tell you, and I think many people here don't know this, but when you grow up in the West, you are taught from a very early age that Russia is a terrible place where you have to duck around dark shadows for fear of people killing you or stabbing you. You cannot live there under normal circumstances. You will be put in front of a firing squad if you do anything that they don't like. This is wrong. This is so wrong. I arrived here. I was going to come with my daughter, Alexandra. She's 32 years old now. And she's very close to me. But anyway, she was going to come on this trip. She joined me on a trip to India. And as we were about to leave, as it happened, Dubai for Moscow, she received instructions from my sons, do not go to Russia under any circumstances. And then I received messages from other people around Europe, do not go to Russia. Why? I said, why? Why must I not go to Russia? What is it? What am I supposed to be frightened of? You know, and I won't say they couldn't tell me, they sort of intimated that my life is at risk if I come to Russia. And, well, you know, I arrived here, and the first thing I saw was perfect, total civilization in every direction. I see a city that easily rivals ancient Rome, and probably, I made the comment to somebody earlier, is by far, not by a little, but by far, the premier capital city in the world. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, you know, I'm a critical person. Yeah, so I would like to say to Minister Lavrov that I've always enjoyed watching him on the television. He always has something quite witty to say. And So I've always enjoyed watching him on television. He always seems to come out the winner. And so what I'd like to sort of suggest to him is, how can we change the perception of the West about Russia? Because I think this is probably, if not the finest, one of the finest communities in the world that I've seen.
Знаете, спасибо за добрые слова. Мне кажется, самое...
Many Russians, many representatives of other nations of the Soviet Union had the happiest moment of their lives.
людей
It was, well, you know, a kind of meeting on the Elbe, when a terrible enemy was defeated, when, contrary to all those diplomatic maneuvers that we observed from the West in the first days, months, years of the war, yes, there was help, lend-lease, and so on, but not for free.
ну такая, знаете, вот
The main thing is that, well, you were waiting, especially the British, you were waiting for our side to join the war.
когда вопреки всем тем
And of course, it was
маневрам,
accumulating
которые
and there was
наблюдали
distrust.
со стороны Запада,
But thanks to
первые
several meetings at the top,
месяц,
Russian,
годы
American, British, we managed to
шла
develop
помощь,
geopolitical
ленд-лиз,
compromises at the
но
highest
не
level.
бесплатно, а главное, что
There was a cold
мы
calculation,
выжидали,
a balance of
особенно британцы
interests,
выжидали.
but I didn't see anything more embodiment of happiness than the footage of the meeting on the Elbe.
И, конечно, это накапливалось. И
And all this, you know, all this later turned out to be undermined by and large, because the Second World War had not yet ended, and our allies were already preparing an unthinkable operation on the initiative of the British.
выработать на высшем уровне.
But it's good that they understood that attacking the Soviet Union, that's what they were doing, preparing this attack, that it was unthinkable.
Баланс интересов. Но
But
вот
nevertheless, the direction of thought was
не
set.
видел ничего более
Well,
воплощающего
and then the
счастье,
Fulton
как
speech of Churchill,
кадры
and the
хроники,
Cold War, and the
встреча
Cold
на Рейне.
Uprising.
И это все, понимаете, это все потом
Therefore,
оказалось,
the happiest community of people, probably this will never be in the
по
world.
большому счету,
Everyone
еще
has their own
несмотря на
happiness.
Вторая мировая война, уже наши союзники,
But the community of people from different countries, from different cultures, but who feel the same feelings after defeating evil.
ну, хорошо, хоть
This is
они
probably
понимали,
the
что
most
напасть
important
на
thing.
Советский Союз, именно этим они занимались, подготовкой этого нападения.
Now we are also talking about the fight between good and
Тем не
evil.
менее,
And you are absolutely right when you say that the West,
было за
well, first of all, now Europe,
Фултонской речи
and not all of
Черчилля,
Europe, by the way.
война, и
And this is the
была
core of
за-
aggression led by the Starmers, the Mertzes, the Macrons. They just want, in addition to the fact that they are fighting against us, supplying Ukraine with high precision, high-tech weapons that the Ukrainians cannot control, so they control the citizens of those countries that supply these
но
weapons.
которые испытывают
In addition to this, they also want to demonstrate the isolation of our country by prohibiting everyone from coming here.
самое главное. Сейчас ведь тоже речь идет о борьбе добра
Here is
с
some member of the European Parliament who came to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the victory, and he was either kicked out of some faction or not allowed to attend a
И
meeting.
не вся Европа, кстати. А вот это вот
This is a disgrace.
ядро
This is pure water fascism, dictatorship.
Мерцами, Макронами,
What they have done with Romania, I have already mentioned, and probably they will continue to do such things.
воюют против нас, поставляя Украине
Here is one interesting aspect that has just come to my mind.
высокотехнологичные, которыми не могут украинцы управлять, значит,
All
управляют.
these countries have
Потому что
ambassadors
те
in
страны, которые эти
Moscow.
вооружения поставляют, они помимо этого еще хотят
Some have
продемонстрировать
general
изоляцию
consulates in
нашей
St.
страны,
Petersburg
запрещая всем
and
сюда
some
ехать.
other cities.
Вот какой-то депутат Европарламента
And of
приехал,
course, the
да,
work of the ambassador is to bring the truth to his government.
Его там из какой-то фракции то ли выгнали, то ли
The government has announced the goal of bringing Russia a strategic defeat.
чистой воды фашизм, диктатура.
At the same time, the ambassadors must report on how this task is being solved on the ground, that is, on the territory of the Russian Federation, against which a war of defeat has been declared. I do not know what the ambassadors report, but we can tell you something. Well, first of all, this is my only example. A year ago, in May 2024, we just thought about it in our ministry and decided not to respond rudely and mutually to the orders that were introduced by the country's residents in relation to our ambassadors in Europe. They simply did not accept them as the rarest exception when it was necessary to express some angry protests. And we had a practice twice a year before the start of the special military operation. We met with all the ambassadors of the European Union, one by one, either on our platform or theirs, and discussed everything that interests them during the working lunch. And we decided to invite them in May 2024 and just get interested. Well, without an announcement. Now it does not matter to anyone what they do not understand from what is happening. Because clearly the capitals of these countries were not aware of what was happening and what result their aggression against Russia had. What effect did it have and has on the Russian leadership, on the Russian people? We invited everyone, including the head of the European Union, the date, the time. Suddenly, a few days before the event was scheduled, they received an answer that they received in order to refuse this invitation from their capitals. That is, Europe did not care what the result was at that moment from this completely warlike, aggressive policy. And the ambassadors were forbidden to move. I mentioned this publicly. After that, it became known to us that they were going to the representative of the European Commission. And they decided to respond to my public criticism. They decided to write a paper which was then published. And in it, in the project that was distributed, it was said that this was all wrong. They did not accept the invitation because they cannot accept an invitation from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the country who attacked Ukraine and who poisoned Navalny, it turns out. And in this regard, I remind you that just as we cannot get any answer on the names of those whose bodies were shown in the city of Buck, neither from Guterres, nor from the Commissioner for Human Rights, nor from journalists who always seem to know about Epstein, but do not know about Buck. But about Navalny, I believe that this is also blasphemy to speculate on the life of a person, no matter how you treat him. Because when Navalny, within a day, instantly, without signing any necessary documents, which should be signed in such cases within a day, was sent from Omsk to Germany by plane, on which people arrived without visas, without passports, and people left without visas, without passports. When he was brought to the hospital, I think it was called Charité, a civil hospital, they did not find anything. They immediately brought him to the Bundeswehr hospital, and there they found, and we wrote a note, "Our citizen, you found something there we did not find. The civil hospital did not find anything." And you can look because it is important for us to know. No, If we tell you about Navalny's tests, then you will know at what stage our biological program is. Wow, what an answer. Therefore, he says, we will give all these tests to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. We are there. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which the West has also privatized a long time ago, says, and the Germans gave it to us. They said, do not show it to you. I'm not kidding right now. Therefore, how he was treated, what was given to him in this Bundeswehr clinic, we do not know. How these drugs could appear in a year, 2, 1.5, 3, I also do not know. This conversation again is based on the refusal to provide facts. Like the Malaysian Boeing, no one provided facts. There were 13 witnesses. Only one was personal. The rest were anonymous. Recently, the court was in the Netherlands. The United States provided satellite data, which is simply mentioned that they showed their court, or maybe they did not show it, but the court believes the United States that the satellite data is correct. Therefore, nothing more is needed. You see, this is again a manifestation of self-impunity and irreproachable confidence in one's own right, which serves as the main engine of those who want to literally undermine, including by military means, the process of multipolarity. But it seems to me that, well, I just want to say the truth is on our side, the multipolarity will be with us.